Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about specifically Cory Booker, Democrat presidential candidate for 2020, right? And he is running to be president in 2020. So Cory Booker is really fascinating. He is a New Jersey senator, all right? Now, is he an insider, an outsider, or a spike, right? Is he a Washington insider? Is he a Washington outsider, or is he a spike? Or actually, is he an outsider, or is he a spike? So he actually qualifies for a lot of things that would make him a Washington insider, but he is not a Washington insider, and he is not a spike. He is very definitely an outsider, which I think that outsiders have the most chance of winning the primary and the election, because I think people have really come to people. I don't think Americans hate Washington insiders. I think they just don't hear them. They don't see them. Like they're like a ghost. Like they're vaporous. You know, like do I hear somebody? You know, like am I seeing something there? Like they just don't matter, right? And the reason why is I think generally people, you know, like there are some certain careers that Americans generally dislike. You know, some of the highest on that list are reporters and politicians. And if you're a Washington insider, somebody who's made their bones being a politician and really hasn't given themselves any distinctors, people really dislike that. So, but I will explain before this video is done. Cory Booker, without a doubt, is an outsider, right? And so that gives him a higher probability of winning the primary and winning the general. All right. So what does he stand? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about his strengths and his weaknesses. What does he stand for? And what does he stand for? So basically, he has three primary policy stances that he's been talking about. He supports the Green New Deal. That is a very, very big swing, right? So with the Green New Deal, that's huge, man. That is free college, free healthcare, free job, a guaranteed job, and then the whole country uses clean energy to spur massive growth in manufacturing, and then also converts all vehicles and all buildings to clean energy. And it does, and that means that there are going to be entire industries that are just essentially wiped away, right? Any kind of fossil fuels, those companies are gone or massively diminished, right? And you know, and so he's for the Green New Deal, right? So that's a very bold statement. One of the things, one of the most interesting stands I've heard from anyone is he is against private prisons, and I really haven't heard a lot of Democrats talking about this. And I'm thinking, yeah, you know, that makes a lot of sense to me. I very much I'm a pure capitalist, and I think I lean far more to the Republican side or the conservative side than to the liberal side, right? But some things I'm thinking, you know, privatizing jails and prisons, that doesn't seem like a great idea. So I'm really down with this opinion, and I think he's got something there. He also wants to lower prescription drug prices, which it seems like he's addressing kind of more a symptom there than really, you know. And also, I don't think that's a great idea, because I think it really would squelch innovation. And frankly, you know, when it comes to medicine, I don't think there's a country in the world that comes even close to America. And also, you know, I'm an American, right? I've never met anybody in my entire life who said, you know, I went to another country for some type of procedure. But I have met many people who have come here to have procedures in America. So it's just, you know, I think we're winning the medicine game, right? And I think that high prescription drug prices are part of that, right? So I don't think that's really a great idea. One thing he really has talked a lot about is unity, focusing on our commonalities, right? And then also he wants to focus on our commonalities in order to address inequalities and racial discrimination. It's a major part of his platform. Okay, all right. So that's where he stands. I don't think any of these. Actually, I don't think any of those are really going to push him that far on as far as tactics on winning the primary or winning the general election. So his policies are not super strong, and they're not alluring or exciting, right? So that's an issue, right? But let's talk about Cory Booker. He has some very major distinctors, right? And so he has two distinctors specifically that make him very different than the vast majority of other presidents we've ever had. So one, he has never been married, right? This is a massive distinctor. This has only happened twice in the 300 plus years we've had president that America has existed. It happened with James Buchanan. Now, James Buchanan is a problem. He absolutely was a bachelor president, and he never got married, right? However, he is considered by most historians to be one of the worst presidents America ever had, right? So that's kind of a bad mark, for bachelor president. The other bachelor president was Grover Cleveland, and he was a bachelor when he was elected. He did not even wait until he was out of office to get married. So, he was a bachelor president for about a New York second. So I don't think he really counts that way. But both of those guys prove you can absolutely win a primary and you can win a general as a bachelor, right? So, is this a negative or a positive for him winning the primary and the general? Okay, I think historically Americans don't like this, right? Historically. However, I think right now Cory Booker is catching a break in that I think more than ever people are ready. More than ever, there are large tracts of people who are really considering never getting married and never having children. And the reason why is I think the last generation had one of the highest rates of divorce ever seen in America, right? And so there are just literally millions of kids who went through divorce. And you can say a lot about things about divorce, but the reality is if you take 100 people and you say, hey, what'd you think of your divorce? I think you're going to be hard pressed to find the number of people that would fit on one hand who would tell you, oh, that worked out great. Because the reality is it's just self-selecting to be an absolutely devastating process for each of the spouses and absolutely for the children. And the reason why is basically you're saying, I made a vow to a person to be with that person for the rest of my life. And then I broke that vow, or that person broke that vow, or that other person broke that vow, right? Basically people like promises. Vows are even more important than promises. And, it's a promise broken. It's a promise broken. And just that's not ever, it's almost virtually, I've never been on the other end of that where there was a promise broken. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that promise was broken. And the reality is you just have millions and millions and millions of people who went through the horrible grind of witnessing a divorce or being in a divorce. And they're like, whoa, being married, I'm not sure about that, right? And so more than ever, I think there are millions of people who would be much more susceptible to accept, to say, yeah, I think somebody who had never found someone that they wanted to love for the rest of that they wanted to be with for the rest of their life and make a promise to do that, they would be like, okay, yeah, I could see that, right? Because again, they've witnessed divorce and they're just like, oh, marriage, I don't know. Right? The other one is children, right? So he's never had children, right? So the issue here is he's never been married, and you know what? Maybe I'm wrong about that. I didn't look that up, but I don't think he has children, right? So, but if you're a bachelor and you've never been married, you don't have children, that's really different, right? That is a different path for a leader, right? Now, again, I think there's more people than ever who would be more embracing of this than in other times in history. And the reason why is it has stunned everybody. I think there's a whole lot of science that needs to be reworked based on this. But one of the things that we've recently realized, and this only became very apparent within the last 5-10 years, is that in developing countries, people are having kids less than ever, right? And so in developing countries, there really isn't, and many countries are like this, right? China's like this. America is approaching this. Japan is like this, where you're getting to the point where there are less people born than are dying. That is and again, this is massively new, right? And so, from that, and the reason why is in developed countries, often people think, oh, well, if I'm going to have a child, it would be nice to have a spouse, right? And if people are more and more saying, I don't want to have a spouse, then that's going to make it more difficult for you to decide, okay, I want to have a child, right? There are absolutely people who proceed forward and have children without marriage, but it's unusual, right? It's certainly not the norm, right? It's certainly not done in larger numbers than people who have spouses and then choose to have children, right? So more than ever before in history, I think there are people who are like, yeah, okay, I get it. I think we're going to be there, right? The other one is he is a vegan, right? That is incredibly unusual. I'm not sure we've ever had a vegan president. That's incredibly unusual. So, and that one I think could be a little more problematic for him. So that's Cory Booker. I'd love to know. I would say he has a very low percentage chance of winning the primaries and a very low percentage chance of winning the general. I think the veganism would be probably the most difficult thing to get past because it's kind of alien to most people. That's my thought. If you think Cory Booker's doing better than I think, just let me know. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let me know your comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.